Mom. What are you doing today?
Providence Place, owned by the Sisters of Providence, an ideal rental setting for retirees to continue their active, independent lifestyles. We have bright 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, a magnificent chapel with daily mass, restaurant-style dining, and wellness and entertainment programs. Call for a tour, 413-534-9700.
Mom, call me when you're not so busy.
Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
Hundreds of people witness for life as the nation commemorates the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. I'm Carolee McGrath. I'll have the story coming up.
I'm Steve KILTONIC in Springfield. Over 50 years ago, a priest founded an agency that provided permanent homes for thousands of foster care youth across the country. I'll have the uplifting story of DOWNEY.
And one Westfield group has been making custom-dyed traveling rosaries from fishing net for more than 3 decades now. These stories and more are just ahead on this edition of Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome to Reel to Reel. Last week, January 22nd, marked 47 years since the Roe v. Wade decision legalizing abortion. Hundreds of people in the Diocese of Springfield witnessed for life locally and at the National March in Washington, D.C. to draw attention to the issue. Carolee McGrath has our story.
The 4th degree honor guard of the Knights of Columbus led the procession into St. Michael's Cathedral on a recent Sunday for the annual Culture of Life Mass. It was scheduled just a few days before the nation marked the somber anniversary of Roe v. Wade, the 1973 Supreme Court decision which legalized abortion. The Massachusetts State Council of the Knights of Columbus organized the Mass, and 3 others held across the state.
It's very important to send this message out of the dignity of our lives, and that the dignity of life, comes from natural conception to natural death.
It's really an important part of who we are as being Catholics. We witness to life, particularly for the unborn, the preborn, and we know how life is to be cherished because it is a gift from God.
The Mass kicked off a week of pro-life events in the diocese. In Northampton, the 2nd annual Parade for Life stepped off from St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish.
It's great. It's very important that we take a stand for God, for what we believe in, what we know to be true, and that is the life that He has given us, that is valuable and is sacred.
We prayed beforehand for an hour in church, so I think that little by little we make a difference.
On the actual anniversary of Roe v. Wade, students from Pope Francis Preparatory School led the pro-life march through downtown Springfield. The local march is sponsored by Pro-Life of Pioneer Valley.
I've always been pro-life, and I've been in Catholic schools my whole life, so I've kind of been taught that, and I've attended the march in Washington, D.C., and so this is a movement that I went here last year, and it's just a movement that's always been a part of my life. So it's not really a big thing for me to be here. I just feel like I should be here, and it's my duty to at least try to do something about this because I'm disgusted by the law that allows this.
To me, respect for life means a lot more than just abortion and euthanasia and the death penalty. We have people are alive on earth for a long time and vulnerable in different stages.
It's important to me as a mother, as a nurse. I can't imagine thinking any other way that a human being is important from conception to natural death. Having had 2 births, a miscarriage, hearing that heartbeat for the first time, it's just, I can't imagine any other way.
Father Ryan Rooney, the pastor of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart Parish in Springfield, celebrated the Mass held right before.
We have to lead with love. We have to lead with understanding and compassion. And as I said in my homily, the angel comes to Mary and says, "Do not be afraid." That should really be our message overall, is this understanding that there should be no fear in bringing a child into the world, even as broken as this world is.
While local marches were held here in Western Massachusetts, hundreds of people from the diocese also took the all-night bus trip down for the National March in D.C. This year's theme was Life Empowers, pro-life is pro-woman. Teens from Pope Francis Prep, St. Mary's in Westfield, as well as teens from various parishes across the diocese made the trip to D.C.
Why is this important to be here?
I just think that every baby has the right to life, and the number of siblings that I have, I feel like that each and every one of them is a gift to me, so I want that to be widespread over the country and throughout the world.
That's such a beautiful theme because as pro-lifers, we are pro-women, and we love women, and we love their babies, and our lives are dedicated to children and to the unborn and to women who have such a tough time as moms and who feel like they have no other place to go. And there's so many places they could go. There's so many beautiful places.
And these pro-lifers say they'll continue to reach out to moms with love and compassion and help them find those places and let them know there's hope. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
For more than 3 decades now, a Westfield-based group has been making traveling rosaries out of custom-dyed fish netting. The rosaries contain no metal parts and are perfect for travelers or those who may be confined to a hospital setting. David Martin has our story.
Members of the Traveling Rosary Apostolate feel blessed and humbled to help spread devotion to the scripture-based prayer. Linda Gerlip says she feels she was called by Mary to design and display these sturdy, 100% nylon rosaries in parishes like her home parish of Our Lady of the Blessed Sacrament in Westfield.
The cord is made to withstand 350 pounds of pressure. So with that said, we can guarantee our rosaries. So they're not like our traditional rosaries. Our rosaries are also hand and machine washable. And so we can guarantee them for a lifetime, which makes them very popular.
The apostolate has designed more than 30 different rosaries dedicated to particular devotions or causes. One of the most popular currently is the Breaking Addictions Rosary, brought to light due to the opioid crisis sweeping the nation. There are also rosaries devoted to particular saints like Agatha, the patron saint of breast cancer, St. Peregrine, and St. Anthony. A rosary honoring St. John Henry Newman was featured during a Mass marking his canonization at the Newman Catholic Center at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky has granted the Traveling Rosary Apostolate consent to visit any parish in the diocese that welcomes them.
We are so tremendously blessed, and we're so humble that our parish pastor, Father Dan Pakolek, has allowed us to do this. And this is something that we do. This is our life. We've given up our lives for our ministry.
Gerlip's husband, Ronald, is the vice president of the local Traveling Rosaries Apostolate. He enjoys working as a team with his wife and meeting new people when visiting parishes.
Our mission is to get a rosary into the hands of the pilgrims. It's nothing to do with money. Blessed Mother doesn't need money, you know. It's to pray that rosary, you know. The joy that some of the people, you can see it on their faces. They don't know about St. Peregrine or Our Lady Undoer of Knots or whichever, you know. And when they find out about it, they're full with joy. They're filled with happiness. They're excited. And that brings us joy.
The Traveling Rosary Apostolate makes long-lasting rosaries with cords used in the fishing industry. It is a reminder that Jesus once told his disciples to be fishers of men.
It really ties into our apostolate because this way, when we are evangelizing for our Lord and Our Lady, we know that we are out there, you know, bringing in more people to get closer to Jesus and to Mary.
The rosaries do not contain any metals, so they are allowed in airports and hospital operating rooms where patients can choose to pray the rosary over receiving medication to calm their nerves during scans, the group says.
They're at peace. They're relaxed. They have the rosary, which is a very powerful means of prayer. They're given to us by the Blessed Mother.
The apostolate recently received a request from the Archdiocese of Boston to copy the World Mission Rosary, created by Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Every decade is a different color: red, green, blue, and white, representing various areas of the world. This was a challenge and accomplishment for Gerlip, since they had to dye the rosaries to complement the prayer cards. Each bead had to be dyed one by one. The first order was for 200, which they just completed.
Our mother Angelica has once said that when you have God in your life, you have everything. And you don't have to know actually everything about it, you just do it. And that's what we did. We just did it without any questions at all. We just continue on with what God is asking us to do. And everything we've done, He has blessed us along the way.
Gerlip says the apostolate can barely keep up with orders through Amazon and Etsy online stores. She added that those who pray the rosary on a daily basis receive many blessings and graces. It helps them to become stronger in their faith, and God truly answers all prayers. For Reel to Reel, I'm David Martin.
And if you would like more information on the traveling rosaries or to order, we have posted a link at iobserve.org. And still to come on Reel to Reel, a look at the Catholic influence in the film industry. And Steve KILTONIC with the story of the inspirational work of DOWNEY, an agency working to find permanent homes for children in foster care. These stories and more are still to come on Reel to Reel.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Passionist Brother Terrence Gallen, inviting you to take time out of your busy day and join us Sunday morning. We welcome Father Michael Pierce as our Mass presider and celebrate the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord. The Chalice of Salvation, Sunday morning at 10 on 22 News, and coming up next on Fox 23 WXXA.
Hi, Mom. What are you doing today?
Providence Place, owned by the Sisters of Providence, an ideal rental setting for retirees to continue their active, independent lifestyles. We have bright 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, a magnificent chapel with daily mass, restaurant-style dining, and wellness and entertainment programs. Call for a tour, 413-534-9700.
Mom, call me when you're not so busy.
Butcher, baker, candlestick maker. I didn't care what they grew up to be, as long as they were happy. To give up marriage and children just seems like too much to walk away from.
He seems to think he's making a real difference in people's lives, and he's so happy. Isn't that what's most important?
I never would have imagined our son as a Catholic priest.
As news professionals at Catholic News Service in Washington, D.C. celebrate the organization's 100th year in operation this year, they are taking a look back at the origins of Catholic influence over the motion picture industry and how that continues to impact their readers and film enthusiasts. Here's part 1 of Catholic influence on film.
I was a film goer from childhood. I had 3 neighborhood theaters within a mile of each other when I grew up in Baltimore, and the feature changed every 2 or 3 days, and my family didn't travel much, and what did I have to do to see the world? So that's how I started going to the movies, and I never lost interest.
The Legion of Decency was founded by the bishops of the United States in November of 1933. It was in response to a sense that I believe was fairly widespread that certain things were deteriorating in the movies. One of them was the exploitation of sexual material. But there was also concern about the presentation of gangsters and crime stories. Beginning with Prohibition, gangsterism had become extremely widespread, extremely violent, the Al Capone sort of thing. And there was concern that the films were glorifying gangsters, so there was a sense that somebody needed to be doing something about cleaning up the movies. And rather than government censorship, it was felt that an organizational effort to exert basically economic influence on the content of film would be helpful. Now, in the background here, there had already been a production code established by the forerunner of the Motion Picture Association of America, but the code was really not being enforced. And so the hope was that if the Legion were present and were able to say, you're going to lose a significant portion of your patronage, that is, the Catholic population are going to obey their bishops and stay away from not only bad movies, but perhaps boycott theaters that show movies that violate the code, then you're going to take a hit at the box office. And that indeed was exactly what happened, was that the bishops managed to show in a very short time that they had command of the faithful would obey them and not go to certain movies or not even go to a movie theater for 6 months that had shown a film that contravened the production code. As soon as that happened, then Hollywood sat up and took notice. And this brought on the enforcement of the production code, which had already existed. But now, in response to the pressure brought by the Legion, it began to be enforced in a serious way.
I grew up really with the Legion of Decency because on the first Sunday after the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, the priest would ask us all to stand and take the Legion of Decency pledge.
Your membership in the Legion consisted of your annual repetition of the oath, where you promised to avoid films that were condemned by the Legion and promised to support wholesome films, basically. Now, taking the oath was voluntary, but it was done at Mass, and the priest would have you stand up and raise your hand. So I presume that if you refused to do that, you would be somewhat conspicuous.
As a kid, I had subscribed to the Legion of Decency newsletter. It came by monthly on a big white sheet of paper with just the title of the film and the ratings. And for $3 a year, I would get this every 2 weeks.
From the time of the establishment of the Legion and the beginning of the enforcement of the Code Office, also known as the Hayes Office, would be involved in production pretty much from the writing of the script on. And they would say, this violates the production code, that's not allowed, or you're going to have trouble getting that by the Legion. After that, an early cut of the film would be shown to the Legion, and they would indicate how they would classify it. And if there was fear that the film was going to be classified C for condemned, which meant the Catholics should stay away, then appropriate edits would be made to the film in order to get it to pass muster with the Legion. So in those days, they were looking at the film before it even came out and saying, you know, these are the changes you have to make. And effectively, for at least the first 15 years of the Legion, virtually no Hollywood film that was condemned by the Legion made a profit. That was how much it would cut into box office receipts to have the C classification.
Finally, today, each year, some 500,000 children spend time in foster care facilities across the United States. More than 50 years ago, a Springfield priest founded an agency to get kids out of the revolving doors of foster care and into permanent homes. His mission and its inspirational work continue today. Steve KILTONIC has the story now of Downey Side.
It all began 52 years ago at St. Francis of Assisi Chapel in downtown Springfield. A young Capuchin priest from the Bronx, New York, Father Paul Engel, was one of 10 priests assigned to the Bridge Street Chapel. One of 7 children, Father Engel was also a volunteer at the Hampden County House of Correction. Lefty Keogh, a district court probation officer, told him stories about the growing problem of homeless teenagers. Keogh said if he wanted to do something, he should find families for the youth. In 1967, Keogh sent 17-year-old Brian Shampoo to meet Father Engel. Brian lived in a downtown rooming house. He was a good student who held down a job, but his education wasn't past the 8th grade. Shampoo's dream was to become a Capuchin friar like Father Engel, who felt all Brian needed to succeed was some structure and stability. At Mass, he asked if anyone would take a teen into their home. Margaret Downey, a parishioner of St. Michael's Cathedral and a teacher at Cathedral High, was childless and lived alone in an empty Victorian home.
She liked helping kids. She was single, and so she took in 2 or 3 kids who needed homes. So that's how it began. So we called it Downey Side.
Downey Side will become Father Engel's lifelong ministry. Its mission, to find permanent homes for wayward foster care youth, mainly ages 7 to 17.
Foster care is a collection of too many children, and it's a needed system, but it's not the best system for children. The best system for children are parents, and that'll always be the same.
Father Paul quickly assembled a team of advisors, including a downtown lawyer, Jim Turtelot, who helped put together the organization's legal structure. They established the agency's first group home in 1968.
That's a tough job. How do you find somebody that's going to take in a bunch of kids that have been troubled for most of their lives and treat them as a family? Well, Mike Ash was the guy.
A native of Springfield, Michael Ash was a lifelong parishioner of Holy Name, attended Cathedral, St. Anselm's, and Boston College, where he earned a master's in social work. Ash worked at Holyoke Child Care Center, then the Division of Child Guardianship, the state-run foster care program. Michael and his wife Barbara became Downey Side's first house parents.
I and my wife and family would provide a permanent home for these kids for the rest of their lives, so they would have a connection, sense of foundation, a sense of family.
6 boys, ages 13 to 17, from various ethnic backgrounds, joined Ash's family, which included his own 4 young children. They all moved into a big home on Dartmouth Street in Springfield.
I was quite anxious and quite insecure at that time about my own role in terms of succeeding here. I started to bring the discipline and structure, provide opportunities for them at school. You know, we had a basketball court put in the back.
Ash said he was Mr. Inside to Father Paul's Mr. Outside. He helped hire, train other house parents, set standards, and choose young people who could benefit from 19 Downey Side homes which sprang up across Western Mass.
We were able to hire some terrific house parents, as well as counselors that help provide support for the house parents as well as the kids.
Ash left Downey Side in 1974 to become the Hampden County Sheriff, a job he held for over 40 years until retiring in 2015. Ash was recognized nationally as a prison reform trailblazer and instituted many innovative programs for inmates. Today, Ash speaks with pride of the teens he raised. There's Freddie Miller, whose parents perished in a house fire. He joined the Air Force but died young.
Jimmy Manelli, okay, Jimmy was a kid who had been in 14 different foster homes. Jimmy became part of my life, and I'm very, very proud of Jimmy. He has been working for advanced manufacturing for some 40 years now. He was just really a runaway, and he was with me for a long time. His name was Jerry, and I'm very, very proud of him. He's done a great job overcoming all kinds of difficulties.
There was Mike Bergeron.
He had 5 kids and worked in the Pensacola, Florida area. He died too at a young age. And we've had some tragedy as well. It wasn't all peaches and cream. You know, I had a couple of boys that committed suicide.
Downey Side homes spread to 7 states, but Father Engel felt ultimately it was in the children's best interest to place them directly with families. In time, he shut down the group homes and focused on training parents to permanently adopt children. Today, Downey Side guides families through the entire foster care process. Over 52 years, Downey Side has placed 7,000 foster care children in permanent homes. Today, its offices are consolidated in New York and New Jersey. In celebration of Downey Side's 50th year anniversary, Ian Keldoulis wrote a book on the organization, Father Paul, as well as the foster care system in the United States. It's called America's Youngest Hostages, The True Cost of Foster Care and Who's Paying for It.
It's a huge problem. There's 500,000 kids roughly in foster care at any given moment, but it's all hidden in plain sight. It's all around us.
Keldoulis said children who are separated from their families develop psychological problems.
When we look at the way Downey Side works, getting kids out of foster care is almost like a hostage situation. The kids are really kind of trapped in the system, and we're trying to get them out. These kids are voiceless. They're very young, they're usually very poor, and there's no one advocating for them.
Kildua said there is no national approach to foster care, with most of the federal dollars going towards foster care, not adoption, essentially separating families.
Even though this problem seems incredibly overwhelming, someone like Downeyside can start to be part of the solution. And if other people start doing the same thing, then maybe that's another way to solve this problem, sort of piece by piece.
On December 5th, Father Engel gathered with other members of the Downeyside community at the Bishop Marshall Center to celebrate the release of the book, the success of the agency, and to just reminisce. In what amounted to a Downeyside homecoming, Keldulis and Father Paul signed copies of the book released this past summer. Attendees included the Ashes and Father Engel's sister, Elizabeth, a Dominican sister who's director of Downeyside's New Jersey office. Keldulis also read a few passages from the book. Several of Ash's adopted sons talked about their experience.
Didn't know what a normal family was, really. I mean, I was in foster homes since I was probably, 2, 3 years old, maybe 4 years old.
On display was a portrait of Ash's family. In the middle, back row, stood Manelli.
Like a regular family, we interacted every day. We lived downstairs, they lived upstairs, but for dinners and everything, vacations, we were one family. It was nice, it was good.
At first, Manelli felt living with the Ashes was too restrictive, so he would just take off.
Mike was good. Mike was okay. He was fair. So we had a battle one day, and I said, "Now, what do you want from me?" "What do you mean?" I said, "What do you want from me?" "I don't want anything." And I couldn't grasp that somebody would reach out with their family to help you and want nothing. I mean, that was huge for me.
Manelli lives in Westfield, where he's been for the past 45 years. He's a godfather to one of Ash's sons. Before he was placed with the Ashes, Jerry Belay had been in foster homes and reform schools all his life.
We were all so different, but yet we all got along good. I think it was the first time we all ever felt safe. Michael never raised his voice. He was someone who talked to you. He just treated us with dignity and respect, and we fell in love with both of them and their children. So it was just a wonderful time. Just a wonderful time.
Jerry, who's worked in the restaurant business for over 26 years, considers himself fortunate.
I think it showed us that you can have a relationship with somebody. You didn't have to always be used or use people. People helped each other, the way he helped all of us.
And what about Downeyside's first foster teen, Brian Shampoo? At 18, he left Springfield, entered St. Pius X Capuchin Friary in Connecticut, became a brother, a special education teacher, and left for Guam, where he lived for 3 decades. Shampoo's life has come full circle, and he's back where his postulancy began. Father Paul remains involved in Downeyside, happy to continue, as he calls it, the work of the Lord, adopting foster care kids into loving families, one child at a time.
I never envisioned this. I had no idea this was going to occur. It was the hand of God. I'm just an instrument, Capuchin Fire.
Father Paul's legacy is the 7,000 children he's rescued, instilled hope, and helped chart a new life course filled with promise where there once was despair. For Reel to Reel, I'm Steve Kiltonic.
And if you would like a copy of America's Youngest Hostages, we have posted a link at iobserve.org. All proceeds from the sale of this book support Downeyside's mission of finding permanent families for hard-to-place children in foster care. And for this week, that's Reel to Reel. Thanks so much for watching today. Remember, for more updates anytime, you can find information and news on the Catholic Church, both here in the Diocese of Springfield and around the world on our news and information site, iobserve.org. We are also on Facebook, updating daily while our reporters work on stories for Reel to Reel, so check us out and friend us at Catholic Communications. We will see you next week for another edition of Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.